Hello friends, Robert Meade, Power of Imagination. And first of all, I wanted to thank everybody real quick, especially those who tuned in and watched the 3 amazing interviews I've had over this past week. And we have more interviews coming up with amazing creators and manifestors. Those who have been able to use the power of their imagination and their manifestation skills and knowledge to help themselves, their families, and hundreds, if not thousands of other people to learn the art of manifesting. That in mind, I have a question for you. It ties right into it. What do the 3 famous men, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and the Wright brothers, what do they have in common with a young 9-year-old boy who was able to manifest his dream? Imagine his dream true. You're going to find out the answer to that and more. Stay tuned. Are you ready? I'm going to let you enjoy the beautiful beach just before sunset here in Puerto Galera as I give you the answer. Let's go. Again, I'm here on my semi-private beach in Puerto Galera just before sunset. It's absolutely so peaceful, absolutely wonderful, and I enjoy my life here, the life that I've manifested, my beach life, now here in the Philippines. Let's get back to that important question. What do Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and the Wright brothers have anything to do with the ability to manifest that was displayed by a young 9-year-old boy? We'll hear his story, so hold on for the answer. First of all, many of you, maybe our younger crowd, might not right off the bat recognize the names I've given. Thomas Edison was responsible for designing and creating the light bulb. Yes, the light bulb. It was over a century ago that he developed the light bulb, when before that they were using kerosene lamps and candles, and they didn't have electricity, or they were just developing electricity, the use of it rather, and the light bulb was not yet invented. So he actually came up with the idea for the light bulb, and he went through thousands of trials that failed before the light bulb came about. Now, when he did all those trials, those different filaments and elements that he used to create a light bulb, and he failed, how did he view that? Well, he was asked about his failures, and he says, I didn't fail thousands of times. I found thousands of ways that didn't work. But he never lost his vision. He kept focus on the end goal of creating that light bulb, right? He stayed within his imagination, and he was persistent. And as a result, the light bulb, with his goal of having it be the source of light for households throughout the world, has come to be. The other individual I mentioned was Henry Ford. Now, Henry Ford, you might think of the Ford Motor Company. Yes, that's the same guy. So Henry Ford was responsible for the production in mass of the automobile. This dating back also over 100 years ago. At that time, it was still horse and carriage, and there were just a few of these contraptions, they were called, which were becoming the automobile. But he wanted to make this the transportation for the masses. And so one of the things that he thought that he needed to bring about was called the 8-cylinder engine, the 8-cylinder engine. So he gave his engineers the assignment of designing the 8-cylinder engine motor for his cars. And after weeks of working on it and coming up with designs and trial and error, guess what? They failed. They said, sir, we've tried everything, and we just can't come up with the design and the mechanism that'll work for the 8-cylinder. He refused to accept their answer. He had his vision. Henry Ford knew in his mind and heart, because he'd already imagined it, that there was going to be an 8-cylinder engine, and it was not only possible, but they were going to get it done. So he sent them back to the drawing board, as it were, back to work, and after a while, they actually came up with that 8-cylinder engine because of his persistence and his belief in his vision for the automobile. As a result, Ford became this huge, mass-producing automobile giant, and we know there are dozens of other companies now that have resulted, and transportation we take for granted now once began in a small workroom where men were just trying to design, come up with a way to do it, and a lot of that was because of the mind and imagination of Henry Ford. The Wright brothers. Well, those of you who know your history of airplanes know that the Wright brothers are credited with the airplane. They were the first ones to get that contraption up in the air and flying. They, like many others, failed again and again. There was a point where they were in their failures when they had yet another crash and burn, where the one brother said to the other brother of the Wright brothers, "Brother, I can see that plane flying smoothly through the air. I see it, brother. We have this. I know we can do it." And guess what? The result was they were able to get the plane in the air, and it flew for several hundred feet, or yards as it were, and from there forward they were able to go on to bigger and better airplanes. And now, of course, we have jets, rockets. It's unlimited, it seems. But it all started with a couple of brothers working in a large field with a contraption that they would become called the airplane. That was absolutely impossible to do, and guess what? They got it done because they stuck to their vision. They kept to their imagined end, the result that they sought. And it happened, the airplane. And now we know what we have in the world is amazing for flight. You can fly anywhere in the world and be there within hours. There was a young man, a 9-year-old boy, and I want to tell his story because his desire for manifestation was much more modest, you could say, but seemingly equally impossible in his world. So this is his story, and it's taken from the 23rd chapter of the book, The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. I'd like to share you an excerpt from that. It's one of the 8 stories found in chapter 23 of The Power of Awareness, an amazing book by Neville Goddard. I highly recommend you get and read. In that story, he says the following. There was a lady who came to Neville for consultation. She wanted to know more about how to use her imagination, how she could manifest and use what was called and is called the Lawofassumption. And this is how the story goes. In response to her question, Neville explained the Lawofassumption, describing in detail the procedure to be followed in attaining an objective. Now, she had her 9-year-old grandson with her, and he sat quietly, apparently absorbed in a small toy truck, while Neville explained to the grandmother the method of assuming the state of consciousness that would be hers were her desire already fulfilled. He told her the story of examples of manifestation, and the boy seemingly just sat playing on the floor with his toy truck. Now, when the boy and his grandmother were leaving, he looked up at Neville with great excitement and said, "I know what I want. I know what I want now, and I know how to get it." Surprised, I asked him what it was that he wanted. The young 9-year-old boy said that in his heart, he had his heart set on a puppy. He wanted a puppy dog. Seems so simple, doesn't it? But notice the reaction. To this, the grandmother vigorously protested, telling the boy that it had been made clear repeatedly he could not have a dog under any circumstances, that his father and mother would not allow it, that the boy actually was too young to care for the dog properly anyway, and furthermore, the father had a deep dislike for dogs. He actually hated to have a dog around. Now, all those arguments, the boy, passionately desirous of having a dog, refused to understand. He actually didn't listen to Grandma, who said, "There's no way you can have a puppy," because in his heart, he already had that desire set. Again, the boy said, "Now I know what to do. Every night, just as I'm going off to sleep, I'm going to pretend that I have a dog and that we're going for a walk." Oh, Grandma, she says, "No! That's not what Mr. Neville means. This was not meant for you. You cannot have a dog." Approximately 6 weeks later, the grandmother told Neville what was to her an astonishing story. And this is what happened. The boy's desire to own a dog was so intense that he had absorbed all that Neville had told the grandmother of how to attain one's desire. And he believed implicitly that at last he knew how to get a dog. Putting this belief into practice for many nights, the boy imagined a dog was lying in his bed beside him. In his imagination, he petted the dog, actually feeling its fur. Things like playing with the dog and taking it for a walk filled his mind. Now I'll pause to let you know, again, you notice how this is the second time that it's mentioned that he would fall to sleep with these thoughts, imagining having the dog? As you may have seen, if you haven't, go back and look in my other videos where I emphasize the need to take our imagined, desired outcome into our sleep, into that alpha meditation, into that alpha state, into our sleep, where it can go work its way into our subconscious and actually affect our outward results. So sleep, so very important, and this boy understood it. He was only 9 years old, but he understood. Here's what happened. After that, within a few weeks, a newspaper in the city which the boy lived organized a special program in connection with the Kindness to Animals Week. All school children were requested to write an essay. Why I would like to own a dog. After entries from all the schools were submitted and judged, the winner of the contest was announced. You guessed it, the very same boy who weeks before in Neville's apartment in New York had told me, "Now I know how to get a dog," was the winner. In an elaborate ceremony afterwards, which publicized with stories and pictures in the newspaper, the boy was awarded a beautiful collie puppy. In relating the story, the grandmother told me that if the boy had been given the money with which to buy a dog, the parents would have refused to do so and would have used that money to buy a bond for the boy or put it in a savings bank for him. Furthermore, if someone had made the boy a gift of a dog, they would have refused the dog or given it away. But the dramatic manner in which the boy got the dog, the way he won a citywide contest, the stories and the pictures in the newspaper, the pride of achievement and joy of the boy himself, all combined to bring about a change of heart in the parents. And they found themselves doing that which they never conceived possible. Yep, they allowed him to keep the dog. All this the grandmother explained to Neville, and she concluded by saying that there was one particular kind of dog on which the boy had his heart set. It was, indeed, a collie. Well, what are the lessons for us here? Clearly, the lessons include that you don't need to be a famous inventor or scientist to manifest. And keeping it simple, having the mindset of a child of simply believing, knowing what you want, imagining it true, and taking it into your sleep. Night after night, imagining that you already have it. That's what he did with this dog. He played with the dog. He walked with the dog. He petted the dog. It was real to him that he was going to have a dog. Now, everything else that happened simply happened. Now, were all of these coincidences? Absolutely not. So his bringing this down into his sleep, and really, he didn't know the terminology, but down into his subconscious, actually brought about these manifestations, the manifestation of having a puppy into his life. Now, we might be adults. We've got a lot of stuff on our head. We have a lot of things that we've been or not been able to do in our lives. You might have some goals in your life, and I'm sure you do. Especially if you're watching my channel, you must be curious of how you can develop and use your imagination to accomplish your goals. So take heart, friends. Even having the simple mind of a child is sometimes all that is needed. You simply need to believe, imagine it true, and imagine it over and over again and bring it into your subconscious at night when you go to sleep. And think about this every night as you go to sleep, not wanting or hoping, but actually having, experiencing it. That's what this boy did, and you can too. For further clarity on this, please go to my other YouTube presentations. Go to my channel. I've already posted quite a bit on how we can do that. Also, stay tuned, because if you've been watching the interviews I've had with great creators and imaginists, I have several more of those wonderful interviews coming up soon. It's been my pleasure to be with you here, and again from the Philippines, Ananuan Beach, my private beach, wishing all of you a marvelous morning, evening, and may you also manifest your every desire.